Hello, my mathematicians. Today we're going to be looking at 6.10, and we're going to be using the properties of addition. You can find these problems on page 407 and 408 in your book. So just to review our two properties of addition, we have the commutative property of addition and the associative property of addition. The commutative property of addition is where we change the order. So for example, 1/2 plus 3/5 is the same thing as 3/5 plus 1/2. Just the order changes. That's the commutative property. Your numbers switch the order. The associative property is when you change the grouping. So we have 2/9 plus 1/8 in a grouping, plus 3/8. Then we have that equals 2/9, which is outside the grouping, plus 1/8 plus 3/8 inside the grouping. So one way to help you tell the difference when you're using these is that the commutative property, again, the numbers change the order. And the associative property, the numbers stay in the same order. The only thing that changes is where your parentheses are, or your other grouping symbols. But your numbers are in the same order when it's associative. Commutative, they switch. So we're going to use these properties in order to help us solve these problems. So this first one, we have 1/3 plus the quantity, which means the grouping, of 1/3 plus 1/6. Well, these are different denominators, but I see that there are two like denominators there, so I'm going to use the associative property in order to switch my grouping. So I'm going to change it so that's 1/3 plus 1/3 plus 1/6. So that's the associative property. So now 1/3 plus 1/3 equals 2/3. Plus 1/6. Now, in order to add these two, I now have to find my common denominator, which between 3 and 6 is 6. And 3 times 2 gives me 6, so 2 times 2 is 4. Plus 1/6 equals 5/6. So my associative property allowed me to add these two together, so I only had to rewrite one fraction instead of two fractions. So that's the problem on the first page. It's pretty simple. You're just using your properties in order to help you solve. Nothing different than what we've been doing. So let's look at the second problem. We have the quantity of 2 5/8 plus 1 2/3. Then plus 1 1/8. This one I have to use a few more properties in order to solve it. So first, I'm going to use the commutative property, and I'm going to switch the order inside my grouping. So I'm going to have the quantity of 1 2/3 plus 2 5/8 plus 1 1/8. So that was my commutative property. Now, I want my 8s together, so that means I'm going to use my associative property in order to change my grouping. So it means I have 1 2/3 plus the quantity, 2 5/8 plus 1 1/8. So now I can add these two together. So my 1 2/3 is going to stay the same. 2 5/8 plus 1 1/8. Well, 5/8 plus 1/8 is 6/8. And 2 plus 1 is 3. Now, I need to find a common denominator between 3 and 8. My common denominator is going to be 24. So I'm going to have 1 and something over 24 plus 3 and something over 24. What do I do to 3 in order to get 24? Well, I multiplied it by 8. So 2 times 8 is 16. What did I do to 8 in order to get 24? Multiply it by 3. 6 times 3 is 18. Equals, well, 16 plus 18 is going to be 34. over 24. And 1 plus 3 is 4. But now I need to simplify. I'm first going to simplify by making my improper fraction, getting rid of that. So 24 goes into 34 one time. So I'm going to add that 1 to my 4, so I get 5. And then there's 10 left over. So I have 5 and 10 24ths. But I'm not done, because I can simplify my 10 24ths, because I can divide both of them by 2. So my whole number is going to stay the same. 10 divided by 2 is 5, and 24 divided by 2 is 12. So you get 5 and 5/12. Again, we're not doing anything different than what we've been doing. You're just using our properties in order to help us solve. I'm going to have you answer 2 questions today, plus rate your level of understanding using FIST to 5.